Alright, so this is gonna be not a normal Dream Life season video, but I have felt compelled for a while now to share bits and pieces of my story. Let me get comfortable here because this is not comfortable for me at all. And I'm just gonna go out on a limb there and say that. I am used to not talking about my story. And not because it's a bad story, not because it's necessarily painful anymore. I think I've done a really good job at getting past a lot of the painfulness in it. But more to the point, because I feel like we're so far past that point now that I don't want people thinking I'm doing this for sympathy. I don't want people thinking like I'm doing it to get attention. But also, I know that there are a group of people, I want to say a large group of people, but I don't know that for sure. But I know that there are a group of people who would benefit from hearing at least parts of my story. So we're going to try to tell this in the best ways that I can. I'm not going to get into complete detail about things, and I will let you guys ask me questions and I will do follow-up videos on those. I feel like if there's something that resonated, if there's a situation where you're like, I've gone through this too, or I'm going through it, or my child's going through it or something, you can definitely let me know and I will do whatever I can, make videos, we can talk, outside of these apps. But okay. So I want to start out by saying that I think a lot of times those of us who are neurodivergent, we've never fit in. And I mean, that's an obvious, right? Because different brain type, all of that. But I don't even mean it that way. I mean, there's a group of us that have never wanted to fit in. And maybe we wanted to as kids on a superficial level, like we wanted friends, we wanted to do all the things. But then when we got there, we didn't enjoy what they were doing. Things like we would get there, we would do the things, but it wasn't as fun as everybody else was having. Or, we don't see the same things as being interesting or fun or anything like that. And I feel like, I've been listening to a lot of videos lately. And the one that I listened to today, one of them that kind of stuck out was like you were born to lead. You were born not to fit in. Because if you wanted to fit in, you would, and then you wouldn't be able to lead, right? And I think that was what got me to like go, okay. Like I did a video yesterday because a friend of mine, Tim, put in his Discord a video on somebody who had crossed over from being like on a side that's not the best. Okay, I'm gonna be careful how I say, and I'm not saying this, I'm not trying to be politically correct. I'm trying not to put my own bias on things because I think sometimes we can do that inadvertently, and that's not at all what I'm trying to do. So we start out in this area where it's like, the US is a really scary place for a lot of people. I don't tend to follow the scariness. I hear it, and as cold as this might sound, okay, and I want you to really listen to me all the way through. I know I'm going to have people that are going to like tune this out as soon as I say this just because. And those are the people who are going to argue, but I'm not going to argue back because you're just going to continue to argue because you're not willing to see different points of view. And so if you're open and you're willing to see a different point of view, I want you to think about it from this place, okay? Yes, the world is scary. The world has always been scary in one way or another. Scary things always happen, bad stuff always happens. Like, we have to have the bad so that we enjoy the good. That's like the duality of things. And I'm not using that as an excuse to say the horrible things that are happening are okay. They're by no means okay. However, how we choose to focus on things is different. If you are directly involved, if you are directly, like, secondarily directly involved, right? It happened in your town. You know people this happened to. You're friends with them. They're your family. That is an entirely different story. I am not talking about the people who are there, the people who are going through it. I'm talking about the rest of us that we watch and we get scared because things look scary. And that is what the world is designing it to do. Okay. Be it government, be it however you look at it. Okay. There is a space where people are trying to divide and conquer because there is so much awareness happening now. And so, because of the level of awareness, now people have more information to pick a side, to understand things. And so, the only way that they can keep us down at this point is to fearmonger, is to do the things that scare us so that we stay quiet, so that we don't pick a side, so that we don't do that stuff, right? But then as soon as we pick a side, then there's all this division and all this, I can't, hey, talk to you people. I can't talk to, like, then you feel more stress because now I've picked a side, but now I'm targeted for that one way or the other, right? And living in the state of Indiana, I'm surprised we haven't seen more than we have in the area, but also I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Indiana's just, it's weird. It is a weird state. And I don't know how else to explain it. I feel like there is definitely a Republican lean, but I also feel like there is a attempt to do the right thing. And it's so bizarre when you look at some of the other places and the ways that things are just such a drastic difference. And that's part of the reason why I've been able to kind of detach. Because while we see it, we hear way more about it in other states and other places. And detaching from it is not my way of like dissociating and, and that kind of a thing. However, fear is a lower level vibration. Okay, so those of us who are out here trying to manifest the best life, you're not going to manifest it from fear. It's just not going to happen. And so if you sit in that fear and you're constantly worried and you're stressed and you're upset, neurodivergent people have this like target pointed and printed on their back, right? That's kind of the theory that everybody's going with, is that there's the registries and people are going to know, and eventually they're going to like group us all together and put us it. As much as I get that, I also feel like there's enough of us that have enough autonomy that it's not going to happen. Might there be uprisings? Might there be civil unrest? Yes, but I feel like we can stand up for ourselves. We can say, yes, I can't do things the way you designed. But who says that the way you designed is the correct way? Who says the way you designed this thing is the only way and the correct way and everyone else is wrong? Because if you were the one that this was happening to, you would swear that the way that we're talking about it is the right way. And I think having that rationalization of, yeah, it's scary. Yeah, I worry about my daughter all the time because she is diagnosed. It is, it's there. It's on paper. I'm diagnosed ADHD. I really don't think that that is going to be as hard as some of the other ones, right? The problem is not, and I want you guys to hear this. If you don't hear anything else that I said, hear this. The problem is not that we can't function. The problem is they can't control the way that we function. And many of us are becoming successful by balking the system, by not doing the things that everybody's supposed to do. And that is putting a glimmer, putting a spotlight on the ability to not follow the system and be successful. Once in a while, there was an outlier. Okay, this person was crazy. This person was this. They were crazy enough that they just kept going until they were successful. Okay, fine. The more people are out there, the more awareness that's out there, the more that we band together, the more that we support each other, the more that we create this field of support, okay, the less we depend on them. And the less we depend on them means the less control they have on us. I never make political content because these are my views. These are my views. You can sit in despair and frustration, and I've been there. I said that on my post that I didn't put up yet. There was a time back in 20, I don't know, 2016, something like that, right? When the first ideas of Obamacare were going to go away. And I had two children that were on Medicaid and a husband at the time that was on Medicaid. And everybody had reasons they needed it. And I watched as people just cried because they were losing their health care. Thankfully, Indiana did not do that. But I watched as these people just got kicked left and right out of their, out of their, like, their insurance that they were paying for. They were paying for this insurance. But no, like, you can't. This is too cheap. We need to go through this route, whatever. Everything's a money grab. All right. And I'm not saying this to say money is evil. See, that's the difference, because money is not evil. Money is a tool. But when it gets into the hands of the wrong people, money becomes something that is used as a look what I have, look what you don't have. I'm going to hold this over your head kind of thing. When there's enough people who have the money, who do the right things. Look at this year's angel tree just blow up on social media, okay? It was insane how many people were giving from the bottom of their hearts, right? And yeah, you could say that some of it was probably, people watched those, people wanted to see it. Y'all, this is my way of looking at it, okay? Those people who did the angel tree stuff, even if they did it just as a look at me, I want views. The people that they gave those to still got what they deserved. They still got something. And I feel like we have such a black and white way of looking at certain things, but yet when a neurodivergent person has black and white thinking, it's like, how could you do that? Like, there's so much gray and there's so much, but the second we flip that on them and say, like, well, what about the gray area with like your funds? And what about the gray area with your business? And, and like a lot of them do lean into the gray area, right? But not the gray area of like where they can do the right thing, but the gray area of where they can get away with stuff. And I'm just in this space where I'm like, I can't focus on that. All right. I have had the opportunity in the last 12 hours, I'll give it, to have conversations with so many people. And even when I didn't have an actual conversation, right, there wasn't really a backup, I felt like I was able to give the people that I was talking to a little bit of hope. I felt like I was able to say, hey, I know that things are hard right now, but I'm here. And doors close all the time, other doors open. And yeah, life gets scary. Things happen. It's hard, okay? But it's hard because we focus on the hard. It's hard because instead of, I've been telling my kids this for a really long time now, for like probably a couple of months, which yeah, is a long time for me. And it's, you cannot solve a problem from the energy that created it. If you are not up leveled in your frequency, you are only pulling the problem down further and making it harder. And I know that we are trained in society that if we throw enough brain power at stuff, we can think our way out of anything. That's just not the truth. We might be able to put a band-aid over the problem, but a lot of times we put a band-aid over the problem and then a bigger one pops up later. Because we're not solving the problem. We're medicating the symptoms, right? We are putting the band-aid over it so that it stops bleeding, but we're not healing the actual wound. We're not getting to the root of things. And then there's a part of me that's like, and I've noticed this, and I've been playing with this in my own life. Okay. If there are people out there who say things like, you can be the new you now. You can just step into the new you and decide. And then you don't have to go through the healing and you don't have to go through that. I am on the fence about that. I feel like there's a certain amount of, you got to get yourself into a place where you can be that, right? You have to get yourself stable enough where you can say that. There has to be some form of, if you're talking manifestation, you're talking 3D, 4D, 5D. 3D is digging down deep, working harder, working longer, picking up extra DoorDash shifts and how many different things can I do to make ends meet. 4D is looking at yourself and trying to raise your own vibration and trying to go in and, do the things within yourself to up level and to allow the right opportunities to flow to you. D says, I'm in a human body, but I'm a spiritual being. And because I'm a spiritual being, I have direct access to the spiritual realm. And I can just say, I want this and believe it, and things will happen. That doesn't mean that I say, okay, I want to go. This is the hard part for us, because as humans, we want to see it right this second. We want to know, or it's not real. So there's a lot of things that I want to do this year. Okay. I want to take my kids to VidCon. I really want to go to VidCon. I want to go as a creator, and I want to go and learn. My kids want to go because there's a lot of creators that they watch that they want to meet. And it's been something we've talked about for a few years now. I really want to take them to Disney because that was something we were supposed to do last year in Florida. Didn't get to. So I have a tentative plan to go to Disneyland for a couple days, hit VidCon in Anaheim, and then go to Florida because we're going to hit Disney World for a day or two, and then we're going to go to my graduation and then to the Gulf Coast where we stayed before. And that's kind of my plan. It's like a 2-week long thing. And like, there's a part of me that's going, you're signing up for 2 weeks of, but I'm also signing up for 2 weeks of doing this the neurodivergent way, right? 2 weeks of Kim gets to get a hotel with a kitchen, and I can have groceries delivered, and we can have dinners at home because dinners are expensive, and we can eat out for lunches when we find a place we want to eat at, and we can, have whatever for breakfast at the hotel, right? Like, there's thoughts in my head where I'm like, I can make this where it's not as hard. I can make this where it's the same thing as being home and just going to a thing and it's not. I'm aware that it's not. However, we're moving it closer to that and further away from every day we're going to do a different thing, and every day we're going to be gone from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. No, I can't do that. Can't happen. No, no, thank you. So that being said, I want to do that. I want to make it to the Neurodiverse conference in March in Austin. I would love to make it to Mom 2.0, which is in April in Austin. And there's like these things that are just keep popping up around me, and it's like, I really want to do that opportunity. I really want to do that opportunity. And I have had to get to a place where I have had to not say it's never going to happen and not say it's not going to happen, or I don't know if it's going to happen. The opportunities that come to me that I am able to take up are the ones I am supposed to do. There might be an opportunity that comes into my experience that I really want to do, but it's not the right timing, or there's a better thing that we can do instead. Sometimes we do these things because when we do these things, when we notice these things, when these things come into our existence, our experience, it brings with it other ideas that we wouldn't have had if we didn't do that. Okay. I have a couple friends that live in Maryland. I would love to go visit Maryland at some point this year. Like I said, I want to make it to Florida. I would really love, there's a creator conference in New York that I would love to make it to. These are all things that I have on my events, on my list of things I would love to do. Now, does that mean I'm going to freak out if I don't get to do it? No, because I'm just open to whatever opportunities come my way that I'm able to jump on. Okay. Now, does that mean I have to do a little bit of work? Like, okay, for instance, I'm going to have to go get my divorce papers so that I can get my real ID so I can fly. Because a lot of stuff is going to be less accessible to me if I have to drive, because I don't drive, and because being on a bus for 4 days is not fun for anybody, and definitely not fun when it comes to neurodivergent families. Like, that's a no-go. I wouldn't mind doing it hit and miss, but I don't think the way that all of this stuff is laid out, it's like from like beginning of or end of March through like July. So it's a very short period of time that all of this stuff is going to happen. And I believe that the right opportunities are going to happen. And I say that like I could get an opportunity to work with a brand and they could pay me up front, and that could give me the money I need to go purchase tickets to go and book the hotel and stuff. I'm coming from a place of just being very open right now because I know my story needs to be out there. I know I have a calling on my life, and I know that I help people. And that was something that for a long time I couldn't say. I wanted to say it and I would argue it. But if you argued back, I would let you win because I would say that's your experience. And it is. If I were to help somebody and they said, well, you really didn't help me. Okay, that's your experience and you are allowed to say that. And I can say that because I've had people in my life say, well, I'm helping, and they're helping in their own way, but it's not actually help. And so I get that fully. We have to allow people to have their own experience, but also be very grounded in our own. If what I am doing to help, and I am open to the discussion of what would be more helpful and people are not forthcoming with that, then I am no longer responsible for that. If, however, people have tried to explain it to me and I'm just so grounded in my own beliefs and my own thoughts that I won't hear of how they need help because, well, you don't really need help that way. Like, you just don't. I don't care who you are, you don't need help that way. Or that's not help. Like, that's making things worse. If I were to have that kind of an attitude, then I'm the one that's no longer, I can still say that I'm helping because in my head I am helping, but it's where we're at and how we are willing to sit in our own experience and validate that, but also allow other people to have their own experiences. And that is so difficult for us, especially when our experience and someone else's experience are opposites. It is so difficult for us to say it's okay that, like, this is a prime example. When you are late diagnosed and you bring it up to your family, sometimes you have a family member that's, I'm so sorry, and now that you say this all makes sense, and I can't believe we didn't see it, and how can I support you? But more times than that is you're reading too much into that. That is not what's going on. You don't have this diagnosis. They're just overdiagnosing everybody at this point. You don't have it. That is where a lot of us feel this stress of, you're gaslighting me because you don't want to admit that you didn't know something, and you don't want to admit that maybe there's an easier way with different support. Scaffolding is something that we do on the regular. When you have a neurodivergent child, like, literally just getting them to do normal things, to get ready, to get up, to clean their room, whatever. It's scaffolding. I have to break things into pieces and I have to make it more accessible and easier for them. I have to understand that I'm going to have to do that for a very long time, probably, too. This is not something where you do it once or twice and then you just expect they're going to remember to do it that way. Like, this is something that is possibly ongoing. And I can say that because I myself find myself still, when I get overwhelmed with things, having to sit down and write out the steps on how to clean my kitchen, having to sit down and write out the steps of how to do a schoolwork assignment, how to do anything, right? Because when we start to get overwhelmed, we start to kind of trip over our actions and our words, and we start to miss stuff, and we do some things where we're just like making some mistakes here and there, and they're just overlooking stuff because we are so stressed out, because we are so, frustrated with things. And as an adult, when I was 20, I couldn't do that. As an adult, when I was 25, I couldn't do that. As an adult with a child at 31, I had more of a reason to start doing that. I had more of a reason to say, okay, I really need to do this because this is not just about me. This is about my kid too. This is about having a clean house for them. This is about teaching them how to do these things. And yeah, it can be really crazy when you have multiple diagnoses going on in your house, when this person needs something this way, that person needs something that way. Nobody is on the same level. needing the same things at the same time. Like, I think my family is a really good look at what it's like to just everybody be all over the place. Like, not worst case scenario, but just like, yeah, we're gonna push every envelope that we can. Because there are days when my kids will have music way loud and they'll be way loud and everything's loud. And then there's days when they absolutely can't. But also, generally speaking, those aren't the same days when they're both like. So one kid's loud and wants loud, the other kid's quiet and wants quiet, and then they switch, and then it is a lot some days, right? But you get through it. You figure out ways to do it. Life is never this straight and narrow road that people say it is. If you do this thing and then you do the next building block and then you do the next building block and the next building block and you get to your destination. Never in my entire life have I met somebody who has been able to put consecutive blocks in a row and just keep going without something happening. It's how we handle the curveballs. It's how we handle the things that knock us for a loop that matter. Some people, it takes them out completely, and then they're rebuilding again once they get their footing. Other people, they can hold their self for a minute and they might be able to, power through it and keep putting bricks down, but it's not a okay, this brick this day, and then next day or day or two or whatever, they put another brick and we just like move at a good clip. Like, life happens, things happen. We have setbacks. It's a part of life. And it's the part of life that helps us to appreciate when things are going good. If everything was good all the time, it would be boring at a certain point. Sure, there are those of us who have experienced enough bad that we would be like, no, 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 like I could never have to have a problem a day in my life and I would be okay. But that is not entirely true, because most of us, if we didn't have our own problems, would try to figure out other people's problems, would try to insert ourselves into other things, create solutions, do things like that. We would be taking on other people's stuff because it's just to just to survive and live. Like, that is not the human experience. If you want to go there, that was what was supposed to be the human experience with Adam and Eve, and they couldn't do that. That is not the human experience. We need the duality. We need to feel, doesn't have to be the end of the world, right? But we need to feel like things are a little shaky sometimes. We need to feel that sense of sadness or alone or this thing or that thing, and then we get through it. I was watching a video last night. Well, technically, I guess it was this morning, but it was last night. I hadn't gone to sleep yet. And the guy was talking about, I will link it in the bottom because it is too cute. And just even my like 12-year-old had tears in her eyes afterwards because it was so sweet and so true. And basically, it's talking about like how we, in the moment when things are bad, like it's never going to get better, this is horrible, whatever. But the next day comes, or the next day comes, and things start to get better. And before we know it, we look back and we're like, that thing didn't break us, like we're still here, And it was there was like a graffiti piece that was on this building that this person saw in the middle of a really not good situation that said like, tomorrow will be better. And then they saw it again well after the fact, and they said it brought them right back to that day. And then they noticed underneath it, it said, but today has to happen first. We have to go through those things. We have to go through those things so that we come out the other side with a different perspective, with a changed perspective, with a little more compassion. And yeah, granted, not everybody does that. And I get that, and that's free will. This is from the depths of my heart. And I know I said I was going to tell my story, but this is kind of my story, which is bad stuff happens. And when we're going through it, it feels like we're going through it, right? It feels like it's the worst it's ever been. It's never going to get any better. Tomorrow comes, things feel a little easier, maybe, maybe not, but eventually things feel a little easier. I lost my husband and my mom a year to the day apart, the day after Christmas. It's not something I talk about very often because, again, This was 7 years ago. And when you're going through that kind of grief and you're a single mom and you've got all the load on you, and I had friends and I had, people that would help. It's not that like I literally did everything, but there is a realization that has been with me since day one of becoming a single mom, which is I am the only one that is responsible for these two. I am the only one. Other people can come in and they can help, and that is greatly appreciated, but they can walk away at any given time. And they are not held to anything, and nobody would, look at them badly if they did. Like, it's not their problem. And yes, there have been people who have made our life their thing, right? That they're going to help, that they're going to dig deep, that they're going to do these things. And I'm so very, very appreciative of that. But it's not their responsibility, it's mine. And that level of responsibility, of knowing that every decision that's made, everything, and then trying to go through grief and trying to like fit real life and moving on and doing all of these things together, it's not for the faint of heart. It's just not. It's work, it's hard, it takes a lot. But at the end of the day, another day comes and it gets better. But you would not be who you are in the situation that you're in with the support, with the people, if you didn't go through that day that felt so heavy. And it's not a consolation prize. It's not even a hope at this point, right? Because when you're going through it, one, you don't want to hear that. And two, even when you do hear it, it kind of goes in one ear, bounces around inside what is clearly been cleared out by just shock, and you don't feel like it's going to get better. Maybe because you've watched other people and you're like, okay, like this is something that we can actually get through. It is possible, but it doesn't feel probable. Every single human being on the face of the planet goes through crap on a weekly basis. Okay. People who have less, they're at a different set point than people who have average and people who have more. Okay. If you have a lot, you have a lot to lose. If you don't have much, you don't have much to lose. That in and of itself is enough to make decisions hard, is enough to change the way you see things, is enough to pump the brakes on something that maybe you really want to do. We're all in this life together. We are all striving, every single person, and I don't care who you are, and I really want you guys to hear this. We're all striving for the best life for ourselves, okay? And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some people will say, well, that's selfish and you should think more about other people. Everybody is responsible for their own selves. And that is kind of the point. When you take it on yourself to take so much of other people's stuff on that you're not taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of your own stuff, you are not doing for yourself, you're not going to, you might reap the benefits outwardly, right? People might praise you, you might get things, things like that. Things might be easier for you that way. But that deep aching inside that says I was meant for more, that says I need to do this, that says I'm worried about this, whatever, that's not going to go away till you decide that you need to take that and make that a priority. And it's very difficult when you are the subject of other people helping and giving and doing things to make yourself a priority, because you feel constantly like, well, other people are giving up for you and whatever, but you are not helping that situation. If people are helping you and you are not helping yourself, you are continuing to keep yourself in the space that continues to make them have to stay there and help. And until you take back your own power and say, I accept help when I need it. Everybody needs help now and again. We are social creatures. We are built for connection. Like, I am not denying. But I think some people have traumatic experiences and it turns them into this ultra independent person. Other people have traumatic experiences and they put the blame on other things and other people, which sometimes there is blame to be placed. I get that. But instead of taking the responsibility for their own personal growth to move forward in areas, they sit stuck because they don't want to move forward, because if they move forward, they're afraid they're going to lose the support that they have. And then they're going to have to do it on their own. I can say I was very much in that at one point, very much in that. I've told people from the beginning, I always had a feeling that I was going to end up being a single mom at some point. I didn't know how, I didn't know why, I didn't know when, and I wasn't even trying to figure that out. But I never wanted to be. Like, I didn't want to have kids until I found somebody who I felt I could have kids with, that was going to help, that was going to be involved, that was going to share that joy with me. And that was part of the thing, was that was what I thought I had, which, because of mental health reasons, I ended up not having that. I ended up not having that while everybody was still in the situation. And that changed me, and it made me frustrated, and it made me bitter, because you aren't who you said you were. And I felt lied to, and I felt betrayed, and all of these different things. But at the end of the day, life didn't start getting better until I said, okay, I can sit here and I can allow myself to be mad, and I can be hurt, and I can feel like all of this crap is just happening to me and I don't have a say in anything. Or I can put my foot down and I can say, like, I'm going this way, this is what we're doing. Like, I'm taking responsibility for the life that I want. And if you don't want to come with me, then that's fine. But it's not going to be served up on a silver platter. And I feel like that's the problem, is that if you are in a situation, okay, and I'm going to wrap this up here in a minute, but if you are in a situation where you feel that bitterness, where you feel that frustration, and you are trying to drag somebody with you, right? I think of Independence Day, when Will Smith is dragging the alien and he goes back and kicks him. He's like, I could have been at a barbecue. It's like my favorite part of that movie. And I think it's my favorite part because a lot of times that was how I felt. I could be doing anything. I could be at conferences. I've been in the blogging social media space since my oldest, who's 13 and a half now, was like 6 months. But I was never able to fully put myself into it because there was always other things that happened, or people who didn't think I should be doing it, or people who wanted me to spend more time on this thing, and I just let everybody's opinions and everybody's thoughts and everybody's whatever get to me, to the point where I just sat paralyzed and didn't do anything. And I did that for a long time, and then I'd come out of it, but then pattern recognition, something would happen, somebody would say something, and here we go all over again, and I would just be stuck. And I couldn't move forward. And I couldn't move forward because I never felt like I was worth having those things, because of my undiagnosed neurodivergence, because I never lived up to anybody's highest expectations, because I was different, because I wanted different, because I didn't want to listen. I didn't want the status quo. I wanted better. I wanted more. Nothing was ever good enough. And it is that driving factor now that I can be on the other side of it. And I still have my days, but I can be on the other side of it. I can look back and I can say no. Like, that drive is what pushes you forward on the hard days. It's what, when you say, other people are saying, you should be doing this, and everybody has an opinion. Everybody does. And I've had to get to that, there's another, here we go again. This is my life. My life is quotes in movies and quotes in books, because, like, it just is. Brene Brown, when she was doing her one speech, and she talked about how she was sulking in her, like, she had some bad comments, and she was letting them get to her and sitting in them and thinking that she didn't deserve to be where she was at. And after all of that happened, she did what a lot of us do and just kind of zoned out, right? And she said she was watching Downton Abbey, and it was over, like the season was over or whatever, and so she had nothing left to watch. And so then she said she started, like, looking up things about that, just to hold on to that, like, feeling. And she heard the Man in the Arena speech, right? Which I'll drop that link too, of her saying that. But It basically says if you are not in the arena getting your rear end kicked for doing the same things that I am doing, I'm not open to your feedback. You can't have feedback on something that you've never done because that's not feedback. That's just your opinion. If you're not in the arena doing the same thing, you're a backseat driver. And we let these backseat drivers into our brain. We let them run our lives. We let them tell us we're not good enough, or this isn't right, or you need to follow these rules. And, we latch onto that, right? Because rules, for a lot of us, that's a thing. We want to follow the rules. But the rules don't make sense in life. They don't make sense because we never got the right manual. So the way that we understand things is not the way that everybody else understands things. We understand things to be the way they are. If I say something, I mean it. I can joke, yes, because I have learned to do that. But when I was younger, I didn't joke. It wasn't jokes unless I was reading a joke out of a book that somebody else created. Like, that wasn't the thing. We learn how to survive in our environment as neurodivergents, but we learn that through being ostracized, through people talking about us, through losing friends, through being bullied, through all of those things. I am in a place now where the people who aren't doing the things that I do, you want to tell me your opinion, I'll listen, but I can't take it to heart because you are not doing the same thing I'm doing. You are not putting yourself out there the way that I am. And maybe you're putting yourself out there in some other way, and that's fine. And maybe there is some tie between them. I've had multiple people in my life that have told me things like, how in the world can you help people when you can't help yourself? And I have said to myself over and over again, you know what? They're right. My life is continuously a mess. My ADHD runs the show 90% of the time. My house is crazy. Things have a spot, but they never get back to it, right? And somebody will say, well, that's just discipline. Like you just train yourself to do that. And to a degree, you are correct. However, another thing I want you all to think about. Have you ever been in burnout because you've had to do things last minute because you keep trying to do the right thing and you lose focus and you lose track and then it takes you forever? Studying for tests used to be the worst because I would start to study and then somebody would need something, or I would hear something, or there would be something going on that would take my attention away from my notes. And then before you know it, I don't even remember what I just read. I have to reread everything all over again. And people might say, well, that's like really good because you just keep rereading it and rereading it, but I'm not understanding it because my brain is not focused on it. It's focused on 7 different things. So if you can't focus on something, you might remember some of it, but you're probably going to remember, talking about like, skull, clavicle, fish, elbow, whatever. You're going to remember things out of order with things that don't belong in there. And that's not going to help you on the test. And then you don't do good on the test. And then people say, well, did you study? Well, I try to. It's not simple for us. That's one of the reasons I scream having stations and things live where you use them so that you don't necessarily have to put them away. You use them, they go right back. They're right back where they need to be. That makes sense. That makes things easier. But if I have to be in a room because I need quiet to focus and I need a pair of scissors, chances are wherever room I'm in is where the scissors are going to stay for a while till I remember that I need to bring the scissors back. It's part of how my brain works. And I can get mad at myself and I can get frustrated with myself, right? Or I can just realize that, that might be a thing. Luckily, my kids are old enough now where if I left the scissors somewhere, they wouldn't hurt themselves with them. I digress. I did this video because I know that there are groups of people out there who want to live the life of their dreams. You are 100% allowed to live the life of your dreams. Other people tell us no. Other people tell us we dream. Other people tell us, how are you going to do it? Because they're trying to figure it out with their brain. They're trying to make it make logical sense. Does winning the lottery make actual logical sense? Does it make logical sense to spend lots and lots of money on a chance that you might win more? Is that actually logic? Not really. It's hope. And when we can lean more into the side of hope and realize that we wouldn't have these desires if we weren't supposed to have them. Granted, some things we see other people with, and I want that, that looks cool. But the things that are in you, that have always been in you, those are the things that are yours. Those are the things that are your birthright that you get to have. And I want to take everyone with me so badly, so badly. I think we all have moments where we just want to drag our friends, drag our family. Like, come on, just let's figure it out. Do the inner work. I know it sucks. I know it's hard. Been there, done that about a million times, and I still do it regularly. Growth is what we came here for. Growth is why we are human. Growth never stops. Therefore, the work never stops. Now, does that mean you can't relax and enjoy it sometimes? Of course, we're supposed to relax. We're supposed to enjoy. We're supposed to do those things. But at the end of the day, we're going to get what we want, and we're going to want more. What we want is going to change. Things are going to be different. And that is 100% the way it's supposed to be. And we get ourselves stuck. We get ourselves hung up on these ideas, and this has to be like that, and we're not like, you're being selfish if you want too much. I don't know about you, but most of the people I know who want stuff, if they had the amount of stuff that they wanted, would give. They wouldn't just keep it all for themselves and be like, oh, I have $1 billion, but I'm not giving a penny of it to anybody. I'm just holding on to it. They'd go buy houses, and they'd go buy cars, and they'd give their family members money, and they'd donate to charities, and they'd do all these things. And that money would go back into the economy and circulate and make lives better. Why do we hold ourselves back from having that kind of an impact? Because we think that we shouldn't have a house on the beach. We think that we don't deserve to have a boat, or to have a brand new car, or to be able to live a life where we don't have to worry about where the next meal is coming from, or about how we're going to put our kids through college, or, any of that kind of stuff. When did we get so hung up on what other people's ideas were about money that we let ourselves get so far away from what the truth is? Money is a tool. You don't walk around and ban hammers because they're tools. Hammers can create destruction, yes. If I walk around and swing a hammer into my wall, it's going to put a hole there. But because it can make a hole there, am I going to say, okay, we should never make another hammer? No, because it puts nails into wood, which holds things together. It's a tool. I love you guys. Money is a tool. You deserve wholeheartedly to live a life that you are so passionate about and so ridiculously excited to wake up every morning. Because when you have that kind of passion, that's contagious. Moods are contagious, right? Have you ever walked into a room and you've been in a really good mood and somebody else is in a really bad mood, and all of a sudden you're like, I either have to get out of here or I'm going to be in a bad mood? Good moods can be just as contagious. The level of good that we can do. And I'm telling you right now, it's our neurodivergent family. Because we are the ones who are required to think outside the box. We have a hard time thinking inside the box. We always think outside the box. Box wasn't created for us. So we have that ability to move mountains with our inventions, with the way that we do things, with our love, with our giving, with our service. But that all starts with us. You can give and give and give and give and give, okay? If you are not taking care of yourself, at some point you are not going to be able to give anymore. At some point you are going to lose your ability to give. Take care of yourself. Do the inner work. And I'm going to leave this here. If y'all have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'm going to try to get this up today because it just feels very aligned. I don't know what I'm even going to title this. I think I'm going to let AI pick through some stuff because I've been all over the map, but I know that there are messages here for people. And I know from the bottom of my heart that when people watch this, they're going to realize, they're going to feel the feeling of the relief that we can have when we choose ourselves consistently and then allow things to come to us that we can then give and put back in. I'm going to say one more story. The Neurocircus just hit 2 years old on the 26th. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't really think about it. It's a very big milestone for me to stick with something for that length of time. I've semi rebranded like colors and logos and different things like that, but the basics have remained the same. Anytime that I have taken breaks from things, and this is, if you know, you get on this treadmill and you start going, and then you have to slow down, and the treadmill doesn't stop. So the only way that you can get a break is you have to step off the treadmill. And you step off the treadmill and you take your break. And then inspiration hits you. And then after inspiration hits you, you try to get back on the treadmill. But now this inspiration meshed with what's on the treadmill currently doesn't feel right. And instead of digging down and kind of trying to marry the two, right? Find ways to incorporate the idea that you just got, the inspiration that you just got into what you're already doing. A lot of times we're like, well, this isn't working anyway. I might have worked on it for 2 weeks and got 0 views, so it's not working. So we're just going to pivot to this thing. And I think we throw pivot around a lot as like a free pass to give up on things. Okay. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't pivot when you need to. Okay. That is not what I'm saying at all. I am saying that we can marry more than one thing. We can add in, we can, take this inspiration and find ways to incorporate it into what we're already doing. And if we absolutely can't, and if we absolutely have that feeling that we need to redirect, then we need to commit to that for a certain amount of time before we say this isn't working. Because that's what happens. And that is why so many of us have trouble with people staying, if you will. And I don't mean like physically, literally. I mean, like, if you are always putting out such variety of content on social media, that might help you bring in people, but people are there for that particular kind of content. So let's say you were doing something like business, and then you're also doing like recipes and home stuff, and you're doing vlogs, and maybe you're doing some personal development stuff. Well, all four of those are very different things. So at some point, people are going to come in and they're just going to look for your videos on that topic, and they might watch those, but they're not going to continue to get into the other things right away, because that's not why they came in to watch you. And then other people might come in on the new stuff, and then you get more people, right? But if you're not putting your old stuff out there too, continuing with that, you're going to lose these people. They're not going to come back. And so if we're constantly switching, it's like we can add to it. And maybe we can go, okay, like recipes is a little difficult. I don't really have content to do recipes all the time. So maybe I'll just throw those on my stories every now and again, or I'll have on my website or in my newsletter or something, I'll have places where people can go to find those, but I'm not going to make content on that because that's not bringing in my people, right? And we can do those types of things. But at the end of the day, it is about us sticking to a topic. And the Neurocircus has been about neurodivergence from start to finish. It's been about how neurodivergent people can live the life of their dreams. We don't live in a world that hands us our dreams because they want us to work their way. They want us to do their things. And so we have to get kind of scrappy. We have to do things our way. We have to either ignore or, okay, I'm going to like step into this world, but I'm not going to be here, right? I'm going to be here long enough to put some food on my table, to keep a roof over my head. But my heart and my soul is in this side, is in this purpose, is in this thing. And it's difficult if you have to multitask. It's difficult if you have to do these things over here that drain you to continue to do the things over here. And that's why you have to come up with systems. And that's what Dream Life Season has been about. We're helping you figure out the systems, helping you figure out, work through things. We are a community that works together. And as we work together, we support each other. And I'm going to tell you right now, I might give you a suggestion and it might not work, but somebody else in the community might have a suggestion that does. And that's what I love about community. And that's what I think is so wrong about the mental health space in general, because I feel like a lot of times there's like gurus and people that we go to that we think have all the answers. And they've studied the brain and they understand certain things, but everybody is different and not everything is going to work for everybody. And so if you don't have the support needed to do the trial and error, that really is not fun. It is not fun to dedicate 6 weeks to something and it not work. It is not fun to dedicate 6 weeks to something else and it still doesn't work. And that can get frustrating and feel like, why am I even trying? But when we have the support, when we can bounce ideas off of people, maybe it's not because it's not going to work. Maybe you had a fixed idea of how this was supposed to go. And really, there's a much more flowy way that it can go, that if you were to allow it to flow more, it would work. That is a big neurodivergent thing, is the black and white thinking and the holding on to this has to be this way. So I'm going to close by saying this. We just hit 2 years and I'm incredibly excited for where we are going, because I feel like we've finally kind of broken through our infancy stages, right? We're exploring. We're that toddler that's kind of going places, and we're not stuck in a crib just kind of doing whatever and looking around and taking it all in, but not like we're active, we're doing things, we're out there now. And I am excited because I know the ideas that I have coming in. I know that people are going to benefit so much from this. And it might not be. I might post this and there might not be a single person that watches it for 2 weeks. Or I could post this and it could blow up overnight. Who knows? I am claiming whatever is meant to be. The people who are meant to see it at the time that they are meant to see it will see this. And that is my belief. That is what I am claiming for this video. All right, guys, I love y'all. Drop it in the comments if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, and I will talk to you guys all later.